New Central Television is still live here at the 31st Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja, and we have been speaking with movers and shakers in the Nigerian economy and those who've contributed their quota to the development of our great nation. And we have one of such persons here with us. He has blessed us with his time, and we have the presence of Mazi Sam Ohuabunwa. And we have quite a lot to talk about. A warm welcome to you, Mazi, and thanks for joining us on New Central Television.
The pleasure is mine.
Yes. Mazi, as someone, let's start with this, as someone who has long advocated for reform-driven leadership, you've thrown your heart in the presidential race in Nigeria in the past. You've also been very involved in the private sector. You've given your background as the former president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. How can Nigeria's healthcare and pharmaceutical sectors be repositioned to contribute meaningfully to economic recovery and national resilience?
Wonderful question.
You know, if you go to the United States of America, one of the greatest contributors to the national GDP growth is healthcare. Perhaps the biggest industry in America is health. So healthcare is a multifaceted industry because it, first of all, deals with a critical issue of life. It's so fundamental to any economic pursuit. If there's no life, there's nothing. If you're not healthy, no work. So that is critical. Then secondly, it has a broad chain of activities that contribute to economic growth, from research and development to marketing and eventually to administration of those what we call pharmaceutical moieties or chemicals that have been found to be helpful in promoting living and well-being. So when you invest in healthcare, it is an investment that brings multiple benefits. You know, I mean, if you invest in a chair, in furniture, you're just making something for people to sit down. They can afford not to sit like this, my friend, we're standing. But when you invest in healthcare, you promote human living, and then that humanity can produce economic outcomes.
Productive human
Correct.
members of society.
So what I'm emphasizing is that very often states, nations see healthcare as just a social service. Thank you. So I'm glad that we're on the same page on this. So for Nigeria, and a country that aspires to grow in, what I might use the word, grow in quantum leaps, because the way we sound, I mean, when the president says he wants a $1 trillion economy in 2030, you can see a man in a hurry. And it excites me because that's what I have aspired, that Nigeria should move away from this doldrum of third world nation. Since I was born, I'm 75 years old. I was born into a third world, and I'm still in a third world. When am I going to move? So it is the quantum leap and unleashing of our productive capacities to grow the economy that will throw us out. And of course, it comes with the benefits of exiting extreme poverty. So my proposition in what you've just said is that it's important that we put more investment in healthcare, because it is not just a social service. It is a great multiplier, instigator of economic growth in diverse ways. That is what I think that our leaders will begin to come to this paradigm and have this perspective that investment in healthcare is more than just an investment.
Absolutely. Now, Mazi, the 31st Nigeria Economic Summit emphasizes leveraging reforms and investment. What specific reforms do you believe are critical to unlock Nigeria's pharmaceutical manufacturing potential and reduce dependency on imports? You mentioned the role that drugs manufacturing in America does. and they're one of the biggest contributors to the economy. And as someone who's been, I mean, this been your bread and butter.
Yeah.
You've been
I've been
a
in
champion,
industry
for 40 years. I mean, who better to talk to about pharmaceutical industry in Nigeria than you? How can we unlock the potential and reduce our dependency on imports?
Yeah, the critical thing is healthcare is a global business. So first is that we must create an enabling environment that is investment friendly. Healthcare is also, investment in healthcare is quite intense. So we need to make it easy for investment to flow in. Whether it is foreign investment or local, the enabling environment has to be created, and that is fundamental because there are certain things you put money and you get the result the next day. For example, trading. But if you're investing in healthcare manufacturing, remember you're going to go from, in most cases, research, R&D.
Yes.
And you know, for every successful product, at least you have 10 unsuccessful ones, at least 10. It could be 100. And you've invested money, only some may show potential therapeutic efficacy. But when you administer them to human beings during the trials, you discover some intolerable side effects. So all the 200, 300 million or $400 million are gone. And that's why sometimes pharmaceutical is expensive, because when you now produce one, it has to pay back the cost that you've lost in other ones.
You have to also be very patient.
Yeah, you have to
into that industry.
So you need patient capital. You took the word. You need patient capital to this, and patient capital does not go into economies that are volatile, where there are policy instability, where there is macroeconomic instability.
You have to be able to plan long.
No, so patient capital doesn't go there. You can have, people bringing money to the stock exchange, just go in and go out. But are you saying build industry and all that in farm? So that's one. Of course, creating the enabling environment I'm talking about is applicable to most investments, especially productive. Secondly, is that the capital has to be also received in a manner that de-risks it, because there's a lot of risk, investment generally, but in pharmaceutical, there's even a higher level of risk because of what I spoke about, the probability that the drug may not work. I mean, when I say work,
unintended side effects. Yes.
So there must be some incentive, something that the investor can fall back on. Thirdly, is that the country itself must take a decision to support the opportunity for these industries to grow and manufacture and prosper. I'll give you a little example. When I was CEO for Pfizer, and I was pushing for us to set up a penicillin plant in Nigeria to stop importing all these ampiclox, ampicillin, all these things you hear about. Let's produce them, do the injectables here. When we did the feasibility to take the entire West African market, guaranteed to make the product viable. Now, if our country couldn't even guarantee us Nigerian market, so how can you guarantee West African market? And then how is the project going to be feasible? So if I put this plant and the Nigerian government is now going to be importing the same product, I am investing all this money.
Working against your interests.
Exactly. So that's a second important issue that is important if we want to, spike up investment in the pharmaceutical area. And of course, the third, and perhaps also as important, is to get a core of inward thinking entrepreneurs. When we look at people like Dangote, for example, you see them as people who are not just making investments, but they are willing to take whatever it takes, risk. So we also need to, as investors in that area, need to, I know it's difficult to combine patriotism with investment, but we've seen examples. And that is also what is required.
Investments for the greater commonwealth.
Of the people, yeah. So we need that crop of people to also play a role. So we need the government in the areas, creating them an environment, the availability of patient capital, and of course, the kind of entrepreneurs that have the common good, who are patient to wait for, knowing that when that investment succeeds, then the returns are also long term. But government must play a role in providing some support, some guarantees, so that when you make this heavy investment, you do not end up with the short end of the stick.
Now, Mazi, in your view, how can Nigeria balance public health priorities and industrial growth, ensuring that investments in healthcare translates into both improved well-being and sustainable economic impact?
The way to do it is make sure there is a constant dialogue and cooperation between the public and private, that the leaders in the public sector have a vision of healthcare that they share with the private sector, and haven't
synergy.
Yeah, the synergy, and haven't decided where we're going. Everybody should know their roles, and those roles should, at the end of the day, meet somewhere that will give us that expected result. But in situations where the government is planning, executing their plan, the private sector is planning, then you don't optimize the potential that is required to make sure that industrial policy and the outcome on healthcare are in sync. So if you want me to use one word, is to say there must be synergy constantly. And the government must understand.
Symbiotic relationship.
Cool boy, you have all the words. I mean, you are a wordsmith. That's what we need.
Yes, sir.
Because the private sector is waiting to be led, to be directed. And it's the job of government to say, this is where we're going to go. Absolutely. And this is what we want to do to help you get to that place. That's all the private sector. And then if you have issues, they help you resolve the issues. Instead of being impediments, you know the psychology of the public service here, the bureaucracy.
Yes.
Sometimes it's as if to limit you rather than facilitate.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Now, finally, drawing from your experience in both business and politics, what governance or policy frameworks are necessary to ensure that the outcomes of summits like the Nigeria Economic Summit translate into real sectoral transformation rather than just policy talk?
Well, the way it is what is fundamental in what I've just spoke, even answering your previous question. Tomorrow we're going to come out with, the Economic Summit will come out with a green book, with a white book, summaries of recommendations and agreements and suggestions. That is point one. And which is also what we've tried to do in the summit, to put what they call policy commissions that will work with the private sector and the government people in a constant state of dialogue, where a roadmap can then be designed on how to implement those agreements, those policies, those recommendations, and then make sure that they become part of government budget, government policy articulation, National Assembly, that all these hands of government know what role they need to play to bring that to happen. So a central coordinating committee or group situated in government is critical, maybe in the national planning or in the economic planning or in the finance, wherever, to make sure that somebody is pointing and saying, this is what we agreed to do. We're coming to the next summit. What have we done? So
even the summit itself, it's a collaboration between the private and government.
The collaboration should not end in running the summit. It should continue in implementing the decisions, measuring them, so that we can present the outcomes to Nigerians at the last time, at the time. Because I remember when there was a time, if I'm not digressing, I served in a committee where Yar'Adua was president during the economic crisis, global economic crisis. I made a suggestion. I say, how do you bring believability? How do you restore the confidence of the people on the ability of government? And what I told him was that if we come to a meeting, we take a decision, this is what to do, we address the media. When we come to the next meeting, after the meeting, we go back to the media and say, the last time, we told you we're going to do A, B, C, D. We have done A, B, C. D is left. And you see the A, B, C. We have added D, E, F. And each time you keep doing that, it puts pressure on you not to just talk and go to sleep, but to deliver. And when you deliver and people see you're delivering, you become believable. And then you can then have their spiritual support for the work of government.
And timelines.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time, Mazi Sam Ohuabunwa, former president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria and also a former presidential candidate. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. We do value your insights and your time. Thank you so much.
You're a wonderful interviewer.
Thank you very much. Sir.